My name is Jane Mason, and what I'm doing right now, in fact, what we're all doing right now, is we're forging connections. Yeah, we're forging connections that could influence the future. But we can't do that yet. We can't do that yet because the connections we've forged are not meaningful enough yet. It's sort of like the flour that I have in my bowl. I've got some flour in my bowl. And this flour, it's never going to do anything. It's kind of like someone who's stayed in bed for the whole of their life on their own. You know, they're not in conflict with anyone, but they've never changed the world either, because they've actually never engaged. I could put this flour in a jar and put it at the bottom of the sea, and in 1,000,000 years, somebody would find that jar, and they'd say, I wonder what that was for. I wonder what that could have been. So, you know, I have to introduce my flour to somebody else, and I'm going to introduce it here to the yeast. Here it goes in the yeast. And what I've got now is this amazing bowl of potential. So these two things, the flour and the yeast, you know, they're kind of like an old married couple who've run out of things to say. Okay? They're exchanging atoms, and they're coexisting. But unless we add something else to the mix, they're never going to change. And they're never going to influence the future either. So what do we need to do? Now, we're going to add the water. And adding the water is adding the life force. It's adding the inspiration and the passion and the creation. And I have set this bowl of flour and yeast on a course that is irrevocable. I've played God, actually, in doing that, and I am bringing the yeast to life. It doesn't have a choice. I've created life. But I have a choice. Whenever we create anything, we have a choice. So my choice is, do I now influence this mixture for good or for ill? And it depends what I put in, okay? I could put these things in. Here's a bag of basically white sliced bread. You know, it's kind of gross. And it has amalgamators, and it has mono and diglycerides, and it has various different kinds of fat, and it has some artificial enzymes in it, and some rapeseed oil, and some Traubenzucker, some sugar, and it's got all sorts of shit in it, which will kill you. And I could put that in, but actually I could, on the other hand, make something of beauty. And I could make something of profound and sublime deliciousness. And so I'm going to add some salt. And that will make a thing of beauty and profound and sublime deliciousness. And so I've taken 4 things: water, salt, yeast, and flour, none of which can sustain us on their own. And I've combined them, and eventually we will make something on which we can live. But now I need an audience volunteer. Somebody, hands up, somebody. Good, come on up, come on up. Very good, well done. Take the stage, take the apron, here you go. And it's good. I'm gonna take the apron. And would you like the baker hat too?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool, you take the baker hat, there you go. Baker hat.
Do-rag.
Yeah, there you go, cool. Okay, I've got a small head, squash that on there. Cool, okay, now, I'd like you to put your hands in that, and you're gonna knead that while I carry on talking. There you go, just squish away, and when it's all incorporated, just put it out on the table and you begin to knead. Yeah,
Okay.
have you made bread before?
Never.
Okay, cool, your first time. So there you go, knead away. I'm gonna give you a little bit more flour, and great. When you can't do it anymore, just stick it out on the table and start to push it around. So, yes. Whilst that is being transformed, I will tell you a bit about what I do. My name is indeed Jane Mason, and 5 years ago I was a partner in a consulting firm. So I was a strategy consultant, and I worked with some of the world's biggest financial services institutions. And I did it every day to change the world. You know, make no mistake. I did it so that I could help leaders make better decisions, and I did it so that I could help them have a positive influence on their stakeholders. And 5 years ago I went freelance, and I started to bake obsessively. My mother is German, so I guess it's in my DNA. So I started to bake bread obsessively, and I got very obsessed with sourdough. Oh, good, you're doing a very good job. Okay, good. Let's put that out there, like that. Excellent. Good. And just gonna eat some of that dough. Yum, got a taste for salt. And I realized one day about a year ago, actually, that bread could change the world. Good bread could change the world, and I could change the world through bread. So I set up a company called Virtuous Bread. And Virtuous Bread exists to make it fun and easy for people all around the world to make and find and learn about good bread, and in so doing, to forge the link between bread and virtue. We have various commercial activities and various charitable activities. Number one, we teach baking. Number two, we have a program that's called Bread Angels, and Bread Angels teaches people how to set up their own community baking business. They can bake at home, or they can get a community oven, and they make just very simple bread, and they deliver it within a 1-mile radius of their home, ideally on foot or by bicycle. And doing that, it does three things. One is it makes good bread available in local communities, where often there is no good bread available. Number two is it helps them actually forge links in their communities. And number three, it enables them to earn a little bit of money. The other commercial activity we have is we actually do bread sessions with senior executives. Oh yeah, good.
More?
Yeah, here.
It's
good. There, you push it away like that. Yeah, you're doing good.
Okay.
That's good. So the bread executives thing is rather than having a board meeting and then eating sandwiches like dogs while you try and decide whether to invest $30 billion in China, we actually bake bread in the middle of that process. I invite the executives to knead bread in silence for 10 minutes, which makes them very uncomfortable. Okay, I don't think they've been silent in years. And they get very emotional, they get angry, they get frustrated. They look around to see what everyone else is doing, and they get into a spot of competitive kneading so that, they're like better than anyone else, get off my bread. And then we move from room to room, and we use different parts of our brain, and we problem solve that way, and we share our acts of creation at lunchtime, which is a profoundly different experience for a lot of those people. In addition to that, we have 4 voluntary activities. I teach once a month at a prison. I teach once a month at a primary school, once a month at an old people's home, and once a month at a center for very, very disturbed and socially excluded kids. And I do that for a number of reasons. Bread, for reasons we don't really understand, pushes a lot of our ancient buttons. There's an American baker who's also an Anglican priest called Peter Reinhardt, who's done a TED Talk. Some of you may have seen it. And he thinks it's because we take bread through transformational processes. We bring the yeast to life, and then we kill it by putting it in the oven. I actually think that's a very cool way to think about bread. For me, it's a little bit different. For me, it's a symbol that we are settled and agrarian. It's a symbol that there's a roof over our heads, and there's a fire on which to cook and around which we can sit and be together. I actually think it's a genetic imprint. This action of kneading bread is something that we actually know what to do. We know how to do it. So first and foremost, there's a relationship that we have with bread that's very profound. Secondly, it builds self-esteem. To create a beautiful loaf like this, for me, is incredible. And I would say 100% of the time, people think I'm a genius for being able to do this, and that feels pretty good too. It also means that I can feed myself, and that I can create something that I can sell or barter. So I have lots of possibilities of being more in control of my life. And I hope that maybe one of the prisoners or one of the children will put their hands in the dough and think, this is what I need to do for the rest of my life. And I hope that the old people feel like they're making a contribution to their fellow residents, because after a lifetime of putting out fires and driving ambulances and raising children, we stick them in front of a TV, and they get depressed and they don't do anything, and they have no one to contribute to and nothing to contribute. So I'm hoping that that's what they get out of it. So I do this for lots of different reasons, but first and foremost, I do it because I think that if we're well fed, we're more likely to do good in the world. And if we're poorly fed, we know that this leads to health problems, it leads to poor concentration, it leads to anger, it leads to short temper. All sorts of things come out of us being poorly fed. And there's lots of really bad food in the world. Okay? Good bread is the end product of a good process. And that process includes responsible farming, milling, a component of hand baking, and local distribution with no packaging. Food has changed in the past 50 years. We've lost our relationship to food. You know, children don't know the potato grew in the ground and that a chicken McNugget once had wings. And that disturbs me, this lack of connection to the ground, this lack of connection to each other, and this lack of connection to ourselves disturbs me. Now, I'm talking to people who have profoundly changed the world over the past 50 years. And I'm a baker. I mean, I don't even have a TV. So I was listening to stories last night about what you do, and it's extraordinary. You know, there's communication in war zones. There's, you know, people who can find people, and they've been displaced, and the mobile industry helps with that, and you can do things and buy things and make things, and it's amazing what you do. I can't even categorize it, and you know better than I do what you do. And you also know what I'm about to say, which is that part of that, what you do, not you directly, but the industry, part of the instant access, has also profoundly changed our ability to relate to people in a way that makes me very uncomfortable. So in a world of instant gratification, in a world where you can just make bread in a few moments, or get your chicken McNugget out of the deep fat fryer, I fear that what's going on in the virtual world is spilling over into the real world. I fear that when I can make friends and delete friends with the click of a button, when somebody makes me a bit angry, I just defriend them or turn them off or turn off the screen. I genuinely fear that people think, especially children think, that relationships are that easy, that they're that instant. And if I don't like someone, I can just turn them away, just turn them off. They'll just go away. And like the flour that was sitting in the bowl, you know, sure, you can spend the whole of your life without conflict if you spend it alone. And actually, for us to be creative, we need to feel comfortable. For us to be creative, we need to be willing to take a risk that we're going to get rejected, and we're only going to do that when we're really actually pretty sure we're not going to get rejected. And that means we have to have meaningful relationships. And meaningful relationships are hard. They're hard. Making meaningful relationships between these 4 ingredients is hard. Are you tired? Look at these, like, oh my God, I'm so tired.
I was going faster for some, taking it easy.
Good.
Right?
It's cool, you know, but it's hard. And the reason it's hard is because it requires this constant cycle of apology and forgiveness. We all make mistakes. And if we want long-term relationships, we're going to make millions of mistakes. And we have to apologize, and we have to forgive, and we have to be forgiven in order for those long-term relationships to work. You know, one of the things that's great about bread is it's very forgiving. This man who has never, I don't even know your name. John, who's never made a loaf of bread, is going to make a beautiful loaf of bread, and we will bake this, and you will eat this, and you will be amazed. And you will share it, and they will be amazed. And relationships are hard, and relationships take time. And what I would like you to do now is look at your hands. Just look at your hands. Everybody look at your hands. I really look at your hands. Look at the calluses and the muscles. I have this funky triangular shaped muscle here from years of kneading bread. It's really very weird. I'll show you later. And some calluses in weird places. And I've got, you know, some incredible bicep muscles from pushing dough around for hours and hours on end. Now look at the hands of the people around you. Okay, they're all different. Some of them are, you know, longer fingers or shorter fingers or broader palms, you know, genetically modified baker's hands with big palms. Your hands are your expression of individuality, and you know that. But when you make bread, when you make anything by hand, you are put into that thing. If John here has a hangover, it's in that bread. If John had garlic, it's in that bread. The size and the shape of John's hands determine that bread. Every bread is unique to the baker. And whenever you do anything by hand, it's unique to you. It expresses your individuality and your humanity. But I would posit that only if you share it is your true humanity confirmed. So, you know, I hope I haven't upset anybody today in my little speech. And if I did, I apologize. And I hope you forgive me. And so our relationship commences. Have a great time. Thank you very much.